take a look at what's happening in the papers and what has been prioritized locally by the Kenyan press. But before that, let's take a look a bit at some breaking news that's coming to us here at the newsroom. Coast Waterworks Development Agency Board Chair and former Kilifi South MP Mustafa Eid is dead. Eid was said to have died at the Premier Hospital in Mombasa, where he was undergoing treatment. Eid was a veteran journalist before plunging himself into the world of politics, where he was elected Member of Parliament for Kilifi South in 2013 on an ODM party ticket. Eid would later lose the seat in 2017 after decamping to the Jubilee Party. May his soul rest in peace. Breaking news coming to us here in the newsroom. Coast Waterworks Development Agency Board Chair and former Kilifi South Member of Parliament Mustafa Eid is dead. Eid is said to have died at the Premier Hospital in Mombasa, where he was undergoing treatment. Eid was a veteran journalist before plunging himself into the world of politics, where he was elected Member of Parliament for Kilifi South in 2013 on an ODM party ticket. Eid would later lose that seat in 2017 after he decamped to the Jubilee Party. May his soul rest in peace. And now on to press review. And as I said earlier on, we are joined by Honorable Sakwa Bunyasi. And welcome to the show, Honorable Bunyasi. What say you about this breaking news that's coming to us early in the morning?
Thanks, Trix. It's good to be with you here today, this morning again. Are we looking at the headlines today?
Yes, we are looking at the headlines, and I'd like us to jump into the very biggest story that's making headlines this morning. Of course, the BBI drive is one of those stories, but we shall start off with another that had a lot of people talking about it, both on social media and in the mainstream media. And you're told on the Standard newspaper how Kinoti caved in, feeling the heat. On Monday, DCI boss, this is according to the Standard's front page, on Monday, DCI boss George Kinoti was breathing fire, threatening to reject the 2008 post-election violence criminal cases. Barely 24 hours later, he was backing off under a hailstorm from within and outside government. What went wrong for the man who has offered several times to go down fighting for the country? A very interesting question right there. What do you make of this story? And perhaps the timing, as some have put it, is quite curious. Do you agree?
Trix, I think this was for me the headline of the decade. I was completely shocked that the DCI, both as an individual but also as an institution, would consider going that route. They completely kept quiet, totally kept quiet, when all of the cases were being bundled off to The Hague.
Right.
The question was, but what is happening locally? And they acted as if they were seeing nothing, as if they knew nothing. They can't wait more than 10 years later to pretend now to know. And I think he is playing an extremely dangerous card that given the time, the temperatures, political temperatures have risen as we gear up for the BBI and gear up for the elections in 2 years' time. And as the country is in fact arguing now that some of the proposals in the political scene are dividing people, for him to introduce this looks like he's trying to play his hand in favor of one of the many sides that are involved in the current political competition. So this is actually completely unpatriotic. I think that it is something that is taking down the road where Kenya nearly split into more than one camp. And let us remember that there isn't a single victim, just one side as the victim in 2008, 2007. The many aspects of our Kenyan society were themselves victims.
Yes.
It doesn't look like the DCI was acting in a way that would represent all those wide array of victims. I'm just glad that is caving in, but I think he should really rethink. That is not just now Kinoti. I would think that President Kenyatta, who is the CEO, I think has to guide this ship. If he leaves the ship to what seem like vested interests, sinister interests sometimes, then we are headed into major conflict in Kenya.
Yeah, and I'll read you a quote by the DP that's on the front page of the Standard this morning. It said, the provocative incitement to ethnic hate division intended by the resurrection of the 2007-2008 post-election violence cases is an evil attempt at resuscitating the tribe project. And far from that, we have had various people pointing out that it might not be in the best interest of those victims to remind them or take them back to a time whereby some of the losses cannot be replaced by any form of prosecutory process. So when you see this sort of things from that angle, what is your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on it are that first of all, that I think that statement by the DP but also many people who are completely flabbergasted by what Kinoti may have intended to do. What it tells me that I think somewhere somebody in government thinks they have a trump card on which they can use now to play a political game. And yet the 2007, 2008 outcome, the violence and so on, really caught many people unawares, and none of them were themselves protagonists. The innocent people that died in various places in this country, and so on, without naming what incidents, but there are many actual incidents, were all victims. It doesn't matter what the ethnicity was at that time.
Yes.
But now to go back and begin to appear as if you're acting in favor of some, I think that this is completely unthoughtful. And it means that there's a trump card, and that trump card is not good for Kenya. If they play the trump card, I think they will split Kenya.
Now, let's take a look at another story here. It has to do with COVID-19 and the economy. This is on the front page as well of the Standard. It told COVID tax goodies to go as Kenya grapples with big debt. Kenya is running on empty. This is what we're being told. The country is under pressure to repay bills in debt. The shilling is weakening and the counties are broke. Now, the government is facing tough choices. And when you flip over to page 2 of the Standard, you're told about the Yatani's struggle to, keep the country afloat as we undergo this tough situation. And there's a breakdown of how government spent 783.3 billion shillings in just 4 months. So when you see this, you're an economist. What do you make of this? And perhaps, what do you agree with the fact that these goodies might actually be going away, given that the country is struggling?
I agree entirely with the headline, and I think that I would not like to be in Secretary Attorney's position. He's in a very, very tight position indeed. I think the resource, the revenue base is really thin, very, very thin. As you know, as we speak, the IMF is in town, should be in town this week or maybe just finished. And whenever I hear the IMF is in town, it means that if it's a patient, the patient is probably in ICU, because IMF is not a development institution that comes when the going is good. Their role is to come in and save you at the critical stage, like an ICU stage, if you use the analogy of the patient. So it can't be happy times. The World Bank and African Bank and other European Commission, others, all these national agencies and bilaterals come in to help grow with you and so on. But the IMF is an indicator that things are tight. That's how they were set up. So that's quite within their mandate. Unless he gets that IMF both loan and standby credit, they are negotiating. I don't know the details. I think we'll be in a very, very bad place. But the COVID, I think, has definitely done us a double blow. Although we were on a trajectory that was not good at all. We were headed where we are. And one of the things that seemed to be the problem was that they were just growing our budget. Each time they're growing our budget. Nobody ever thought of restructuring it, including compressing it so that the revenue and expenditure, planned expenditure aspect can kind of come in line. So the borrowing is reduced. That went on, the borrowing went on and mitigated. The budget was growing. Nobody would drop anything. Things were just being added. and then COVID struck.
Yes.
So it's really in double jeopardy. I think it's even probably tighter than showing up in the papers.
Okay, for those who are watching at home and do not understand what this implies, the IMF being in town, this is news that broke yesterday. Zambia was one of the first countries to be flagged as default, to become the first country to default. Now we're told Kenya and Ghana are in the red. What happens then if we default on these loans that we have been taking?
I do hope that we do not default. When you default, there are many things that happen. One of the things that your credit rating, which means the international CRB, so to say, they look at Kenya as a country on whom you cannot rely to do business with because their capacity to pay is in question.
Yes.
So what happens is for those agencies and countries that would lend, there will be those, they will only be lending at rates that are higher than the going rates. Whatever the rates would have been for Kenya, they will now be higher because we have an added risk that Kenya could default.
Yes.
You can also get situations where the private sector is unable now to conduct business in the normal way they do, where our banks can issue letters of credit, for example, and allow business people to participate in trade. They would now say these letters of credit have no meaning because when push comes to shove, they will not be able to meet it since probably their foreign exchange reserves are low and the country is in deep debt. They will not be able to get the funds they want. The exchange rate may have declined to an extent where they may be unable to buy enough, to get enough local currency to buy foreign exchange. So you get towards cash setting, meaning that have the money in advance before you can do anything for you, and you can't function like that. So it really tightens the noose substantially. Two, that also means that the debts we have to pay. For example, in the case of Kenya, we have the SGR debt that comes up. One of the installments I know comes up in January. The first one came up in January. So I'm sure this coming in January is another installment, which was large. And similar, not just for SGR, but any other. I don't have full information on the timings of other debts. But in principle, when those debts become due, it means you're not going to be able to pay them.
Yeah.
And the lenders are going to continue to accept that you can transact externally from your own country if you're unable to meet debts. It's a very, very horrible situation. We would be in a situation where we can't, for example, import our medicines unless we have cash in the pocket, literally. And we don't have cash. That's where we are now. So you wouldn't be able to get into arrangements where you can get these things provided. And even when you have vaccines that are going to be available and countries are bidding for their own quotas for those vaccines, they would expect that you have to have payment. And if we don't have it, we'll have to run to somebody to help us pay for it. And then, your bargaining position in the national sphere reduces because you're really desperate and you're in a corner. It's very sad that the two countries that are some of the leading economies on the continent are also in this basket, Ghana and Kenya, among a few others are outside of that bracket, that are inside. And Kenya is the anchor on the East African side. Ghana is the anchor in terms of the strength of the economic factors. Ghana is stronger than Nigeria, although Nigeria is richer. It's sad that these two countries are into this problem. So it means that even the best can get into it. And therefore, careful planning, how you manage what you borrow for, is very important. This noise that people have made for a long time, the government did not listen to it. But I think we're coming to a point of great concern, and I hope that now they will have to really think seriously how they use whatever resources they have got.
Okay.
And as I conclude, Rix, at a time like this, when you hear of continuing graft, theft by public servants from our parastatals and other institutions, that's what makes it very difficult for the Treasury Secretary, because he's spending money, a large part of which is going to go to theft rather than going to providing the goods and the services that were intended. It makes his job even more difficult. He has to go back and borrow yet more to come back and try and finance essential goods and services like medicines, services of that nature that the country needs. So at a time like this, corruption and theft in the public sector, I think should really be punishable by severe punishments, and sometimes the law does not contemplate. We should follow countries like China on how they deal with domestic corruption.
Right.
So I think Kenya is really tight position. If we don't wake up to this, it can get much worse.
Okay, and far from corruption, the last question on this particular headline, to what extent is defeating coronavirus going to aid in this situation with the economy?
Sorry, to what extent?
To what extent will defeating coronavirus, completely eliminating it from our society, help in aiding the economy?
It would help tremendously, Trix. If we are able to defeat the corona virus and get on top of this pandemic, then it means that economic activity can resume. Institutions, companies, individuals can begin to apply their energies and resources to the full to improve their own personal or institutional economic status. That's what revives the economy. Then government, as people get jobs and companies can begin to make profits or even have significant revenues, then the taxpayer, then KRA will be there, can come in, get some of those through tax, and then the government has the resources they can then apply in the expenditure, public expenditure they use. If you cut, with the corona in place, essentially has cut that cycle of economic activity.
Okay.
Households are not able to earn their keep that they need, so there is increased poverty at the household level. If they don't earn, they can't pay revenue, can't pay taxes, so the state gets less taxes. Companies, because they are scaled down, can't pay the taxes they were paying before, the state gets less taxes. And so the attorney's basket of goodies has to reduce because now he can no longer fund them. If we go beyond this corona, we'll revive the opposite of that, and the economy will not come up bang in one day, but will begin beyond the mend, to begin to improve progressively.
Okay.
So defeating the corona is extremely useful in the recovery strategy for Kenya. And at Twix is a bad time because we have to fund a proposed referendum and fund a general election at a time when our basket is completely empty.
Right.
And we have IMF in town, and not only for this week, they'll stay around for a while, I can assure you. They don't go away quickly.
All right. Thank you for that sentiment on that particular story. Remember, there's so much on the coronavirus. Aside from the economy, we also told on the front page of the Daily Nation about COVID fears as a man dies in a matatu. He was discovered dead after another passenger tried to surpass him and get out of the vehicle. It is quite an unfortunate incident, and of course, the vehicle was fumigated and that situation handled. Remember, today is the day where the President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga will be launching the BBI signature drive at the KICC. We have a reporter on the ground, George Maringa. You are up and early at the venue. Tell us what the situation is right now and what are we to expect from this very momentous day.
Thank you, Trix. A day has broken right here in the capital, Nairobi, the venue being the Kenyatta International Convention Center, KICC, for another step in the BBI process, a process that started all the way from 28th of March 2018 after the handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and the ODM leader Raila Odinga. As you have rightly mentioned, today will be the launch of the BBI signature drive, a process, or rather an important step, an integral step in identifying, or rather in completion of this process, which will culminate in a constitutional referendum. Here at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, activity is minimal as we await the official launch, or rather the event to officially begin later in the morning. But as of now, the carpets have been rolled, security has been beefed up in and around the KICC. We of course expect a few people. As you can see, the seats have been separated in accordance to the social distancing rules, 1.5 meters apart, and there won't be so many people as has been witnessed in the past during previous events. But just to give a recap, or rather where this comes from, the IEBC just recently, rather this week, approved the form and format for the BBI signature collection. And the BBI Secretariat team says that it actually aims at collecting a total of 4 million signatures signatures, in as much as the constitutional basis is 1 million signatures, but the secretariat led by Junet Mohammed and Mr. Waweru argue that they want to achieve a total of 4 million, or rather they aim for 4 million signatures. Of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga will lead the event today. We launch the signature launch today at a corner onto my left or to the right of the dais, where they expect the the signature drive to happen. Of course, the two initiating this process that will be taken throughout the country, as the secretariat aims to achieve, or rather to collect 4 million signatures. The BBI secretariat has also said that the process will take 1 week across the country, a process that also has to be conducted in accordance or in adherence to social distancing guidelines. Activity is minimal here at the KICC. Leaders have not started streaming in yet. Of course, you expect that once they arrive, you'll also be able to see what transpires during the rest of the day, and you can trust KTN News to give you blow-by-blow coverage, a minute-by-minute update of the events happening today at the KICC for this yet momentous occasion that comes just a month after the official launch of the BBI document at the Bomas of Kenya in Nairobi. We expect several leaders. Among those who have been invited are Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, and a host of other leaders. We understand that the deputy president is out of the country. We will also wait to see which other leaders will be present here today at this event, which is another step in the greater milestone to achieve what the president, or rather what the president has once again, or rather has in the past enumerated, that he discerns a constitutional moment, having said that during the Labor Day celebrations, the Madaraka Day celebrations, having said that this is a process to unite the country. They remember that this process, or rather this day, comes just a month after the official launch of the BBI document, which Kenyans have been told to read page by page. Views are coming in from various quarters, of course, but this is a process that the president and ODM leader Raila Odinga have insisted, or rather have said, that is a process to unite the country and will ultimately bring, or rather heal the wounds that they have said have for long plagued the nation. So, Tricks and our viewers, this is how the situation looks like as of now. We expect that the official function